This is part 2 of rebuilding one of the smoothest UI animations out there, originally built in After Effects by Cheyenne CMC, now coming together in DaVinci Resolve Fusion. Last time we built the full call bar, from the switch through the icons to the avatar. Today, we're finishing it, morphing it into the notes panel, animating the cursor, and turning it into a perfect loop. Haven't seen part 1? Click the video on the top right first. Let's get started. First of all, we morph the call bar into the notes window. For this, select the S rectangle and keyframe width, height, corner radius, and Y offset at frame 110. Forward to frame 135 and set Y offset to around -0.019. This makes the bar slowly move down. Then go to frame 145. Set width to around 0.48 and height to around 0.38. Adjust corner radius until it looks right. I landed on 0.35. To make some space, move those 4 nodes up a bit. Then add a transform node after NEObevel. In the inspector, keyframe center and size. Go to frame 145 and adjust size and center Y. For smooth motion, open the spline editor, select the height and width curves. Select all keyframes and press S for an S-curve. To match the reference exactly, I place guides every few frames right on top of the shape in the reference video. Then I fine-tune purely by playing with the curve until it lines up. Deselect width and height. Select the corner radius curve, select all keyframes, and create another S-curve. Adjust the handle so it starts fast and eases out slow. Go back to the height and width curves. They're not quite right yet, and keep adjusting the handles until the movement matches perfectly. Close the spline editor. Now select the transform node and open the spline editor again. Deselect size so only displacement is selected. Select all keyframes and create another S-curve. Then deselect displacement and select the size curve. Select all keyframes again, right-click into the graph, and choose Out Cubic. Now it starts very fast and slows down toward the end. Now let's add the yellow notes bar on top. Copy the S rectangle node and paste it underneath. Connect it into the S merge node, not into the white input this time, but into the yellow input, so it sits in the background. Delete all the color keyframes from this new rectangle node. Set its color to the same yellow as in the reference video using the pipette tool. In the Controls tab, go to frame 135 and increase Y offset until it matches the reference, somewhere around 0.061. For smooth motion, open the spline editor. Select only the Y offset curve, click zoom to fit to see the whole graph, select all keyframes and create an S curve. Adjust it to match mine by just roughly ease in at 33 and ease out at 89. Then close the spline editor. Next, let's change the bar's color. Select the S rectangle, go to frame 110 and set a keyframe. Move forward to frame 150 and set the color to pure white. Adjust the spline here too. Select the red, green, and blue channels, create an S-curve, and adjust the handles so the color transition matches the reference video exactly. These are small details, but they're exactly what gives the animation a professional look. Move the nodes up again and add a drop shadow. In the inspector, set shadow strength to around 0.414, drop distance to 0.024, and blur to 0.66. The phone icon in the background doesn't get cut off cleanly yet. To fix this, select the merge, go to the settings tab, and find the channel section. Drag the low side slider to the right until the phone icon disappears. Now the edges are cut perfectly. Now let's make the icons in the middle shrink away. Select those nodes and move them up. Add another transform node between the merge and NEObevel. In the inspector, set a keyframe at frame 105. Move forward to frame 140 and set size to 0.75. Open the spline editor, create an S-curve, and adjust the handles to match mine. Now all the icons shrink slightly and drift toward the middle. Select the client text. Go to the shading tab and set a keyframe for opacity at frame 115. Move to frame 132 and set opacity to 0. Now select the mobile text. Go to the shading tab and set an opacity keyframe at frame 117. Move forward to frame 132 and set opacity to 0. The mobile text should actually disappear first. So go back to frame 130, select the mobile text, and set opacity to 0 there. Delete the keyframe at frame 132. Select the S-transform node, go to frame 112 and keyframe Y offset. Move to frame 127 and decrease Y offset to around -0.23. This sends the accept button sliding down. For smooth motion, open the spline editor. Select the Y offset curve, select all keyframes, and create an S-curve. Adjust the handles to match the reference video's movement. To make it disappear for good, open the ellipses inspector and go to the style tab. Add an opacity keyframe at frame 126. Then move one frame forward forward and set opacity to 0. Do the same for the phone icon. Select the polygon node, keyframe opacity at frame 126, and drop it to 0 one frame later. Let's repeat the process for the decline button, just slightly delayed. Select its S-transform node and keyframe Y offset at frame 115. Move forward to frame 136 and decrease Y offset to around negative 0.31. Match the same curve shape you used for the accept button in the spline editor. Select the red ellipse and keyframe opacity at frame 135. Then drop it to 0 one frame later. Repeat this once more for its polygon node. Opacity keyframed at frame 135, then down to 0 the following frame. One thing is still left on screen, the avatar. Select its transform node and add a keyframe at frame 110. Move forward to frame 140 and decrease center X until the avatar slides off screen entirely. Open the spline editor. Select displacement, select the last 2 keyframes, and create an S-curve. Fine-tune the handles until it matches the reference video's timing. Close the spline editor. With that done, let's animate a subtle up and down drift on the nodes panel. Select its transform node. Decrease center Y at frame 160 and reduce size to around 0.84. At frame 210, increase size to 0.95 and center Y to around 0.51. Then, at frame 235, bring size back down to 0.85 and center Y down to around 0.49. This creates a gentle floating motion that makes the whole animation feel more alive. To smooth it out, open the spline editor. Select the size curve, select the last 3 keyframes, and adjust the handles to your liking. Before moving on, let's tidy up the node tree again, adding some breathing room between the bar nodes and the icon nodes. It's time to fill the notes panel with text. Grab your guides and line them up exactly with the top left text in the reference. That tells you precisely how large the text should be and where it needs to sit. Add a text plus node for this one. Type something like SAT 20 June 2026 into the text node. Move the bar nodes up and connect this text node after the drop shadow node with a merge. That way it automatically inherits the same transform nodes, so the text moves together with the nodes panel without any extra work. Adjust font, size, and color until it matches the reference. This takes a bit of trial and error with opacity, size, and font choice. Feel free to copy my settings or find your own look. Once it sits perfectly, copy this text node to create the Done label right next to it, again using guides to place it exactly. Then animate it in. At frame 142, set opacity to 0, and at frame 146, bring it up to 0.4. Time for the date text word-by-word reveal. It's a slightly more involved technique in DaVinci Resolve, but stick with me. With a bit more practice, it'll click. Copy the text node and paste it with Command plus Shift plus V to create an instance node. Connect this instance into the text mask input. In the Instances Inspector, open the Shading tab, right-click the Enable checkbox, and de-instance it. This breaks its link to the original text node. Uncheck it. Then move to element 5, de-instance that too, and check its box. Set appearance to fill and level to word. View the instance in the left window. You should see a white box appear. Decrease, extend horizontal until small gaps appear between the boxes. Now go to the text tab, right-click the text box, and choose follower. In the modifiers tab, set delay to 2. Switch to the shading tab and enable element 5. At frame 138, keyframe opacity at 0, then at frame 142, bring it back to 1. That gives you the word-by-word reveal. The timing feels slightly off though, so dial delay back down to 1 to tighten it up. And that's how you build a word-by-word text animation in DaVinci Resolve. For the remaining text elements, apply the same approach yourself. Use guides to nail down size and position. And if text animations are still new to you, check out the video linked top right, where I break down my 5 most common text animations. Let's build the glowing circles on the left side. Start by placing guides on the edges of the first circle in the reference video. Then search for an S-ellipse and an S-merge. Create some space by dragging all the text nodes up and add an S-render node as well. Connect the ellipse into the merge and connect the render between the 2 merges. Tidy everything up a bit so the node tree looks clean. Now go into the ellipses inspector and type an equals sign into height to open the expression field. Drag the plus icon onto width so height and width stay linked. Adjust the size and position of the ellipse until it matches the reference perfectly. Deselect solid, so you're left with just the border. Quick tip, drag another guide right on top of the reference circle. That way you know the exact size. Drag up border width to match the reference. Set its color to gray and keyframe it at frame 149. Move forward to where the circle in the reference turns fully green, somewhere around frame 175, and set the color to green. Now animate the circle drawing on. Find the frame where the animation starts in the reference, something around frame 149. Set length to 0 and add a keyframe. Then move forward to frame 175 and set length to -1. The circle now animates in the same direction as the reference, but starts from the wrong point. So rotate it until the start of the border sits at the top. A rotation of 90 does the trick. For smooth motion, open the spline editor. Select the length curve, select all keyframes, create an S curve, and set ease in and ease out to around 50. With the first circle finished, select it and duplicate it for the second one. Duplicate it again so you've got 3 ellipses total, and connect all of them into the merge. Adjust the guides for the second circle and reposition it correctly. Do the same for the third circle. Reposition the guides and drag it down until it matches them. Now all 3 circles are in place. Right now, all 3 circles animate at the same time, but we want them to fire one after another. Open the keyframe panel, select the second ellipse, and shift all its keyframes 5 frames to the right. Then select the third ellipse and shift its keyframes 10 frames forward. Close the keyframe panel again, make a bit more space, and add a NeoGlow node after the S-render node. You'll find this one linked in the description. It's free. Drag the color further into the green range so the glow reads green. Then increase intensity. This controls the strength of the glow. Increase radius too. That's how far the glow reaches. And bump up spread slightly, which controls how much it diffuses outward. Time to organize the node tree again. Select all the nodes belonging to the nodes panel, the text and ellipse nodes, and add an underlay node. Rename it with F2 and give it a color of your choice. Then create a bit more room by moving media out further to the right. After the last merge, add the cursor image. You'll find it linked in the description too. Connect it to the merge before. Add a transform node between the merge and the cursor and scale it down slightly. Check the reference video to see exactly when and where the cursor enters. Around frame 78, it moves into frame. So go to frame 77 and set the cursor's size to around 0.08. and rotation to around 65, positioning it in the bottom right corner and keyframing its position. Move to the frame where the cursor exits again and drag it to the top right corner where it leaves. Then go back to the frame where the cursor lands on the decline button and drag it there to match the reference. Switch to Modify Only mode so you can select just the keyframe points. Then choose Smooth so the cursor travels in a clean curve instead of zigzagging. Keep adjusting the handles until the path feels exactly right. Now go to the first frame of the animation and keyframe Rotation. Move to the middle keyframe and adjust both rotation and position. Then repeat at the last keyframe. For smooth motion, open the spline editor. Select only displacement. Select the first 2 keyframes, right-click, and choose Ease Out Cubic. Select the last 2 keyframes and choose In Cubic. This way, the motion starts fast, slows through the middle, and picks back up at the end. I wasn't fully happy with the cursor's path, so I refined it a bit further. In the spline editor, select only Angle. In my case, there was 1 extra keyframe, so I deleted it. Then apply the same Out Cubic and In Cubic pattern to the first 2 and last 2 keyframes, keeping position and rotation moving in sync. Only the click animation is left. Go to frame 107 and keyframe size. Then move to frame 109 and shrink it slightly to around 0.07. Move forward to frame 114 and bring it back to 0.08. The first 2 keyframes sit a bit too close together, so open the keyframe panel and shift the earlier 1-3 frames to the left. That reads much better. One last thing, animating the oversized hand at the end to make everything loop perfectly. Add another transform node after the existing one and move its pivot to the cursor's position in the top right corner. This extra node makes it much easier to rotate and position around that point. At frame 219, keyframe size, angle, and position. Move forward to frame 220 and set size to 10, angle to around 60, and the position to the middle of the window height, with the X position pushed far enough that the hand stays off screen. Move forward to where the cursor disappears, around frame 251, and drag the hand all the way to the left, just far enough that it's out of frame. Without overshooting, I landed on -0.647. Adjust angle to around 108. Because of the rotation, the hand peeks in slightly, so nudge the position again until it's fully hidden. Open the spline editor. Select displacement. Select the last 2 keyframes and adjust the handles until the movement lines up perfectly with the reference. Deselect displacement, select angle, and create an S-curve to match mine. At this point, the cursor moves correctly, but the nodes panel behind it isn't disappearing yet. Move all the cursor nodes to the right to make some space, then add a background node between the 2 merge nodes and set its color to pure white. Add a rectangle mask and size it to cover the entire window. At frame 230, Move it almost all the way to the right and keyframe its position. Then move forward to frame 248 and push it fully to the right. Open the spline editor and adjust the curve until this motion matches the cursor's movement exactly. So as the cursor swipes across the notes panel, everything behind it wipes away too. And with that, we've got a perfect loop. For the very last step, turn on motion blur everywhere, on every transform, mask, and render node. You could do this earlier in the process, but I prefer saving it for the end, so the project doesn't slow down while you're still working. So that's the complete build. If this helped, leave a like and subscribe for more. See you in the next one.